Pues buenas noches, buenos días en China. Esta es nuestra primera conferencia en línea que está dentro del programa de, un momentito, vamos a quitar el sonido del mar, ¿verdad? Porque, un momento. Ok. Como les decía, esta es nuestra primera conferencia en línea del Festival de Videoartistas Chinos. Y tenemos como invitada muy especial y muy importante a Liu Fan. Ella pues fue conmigo la que inició este proyecto y les voy a presentar pues algo de lo que va, de lo que es ella, ¿no? Su conferencia se llama Ecos transatlánticos desde la perspectiva femenina, el Festival de Videoartistas Chinas y 400 años de ADN cultural entre China y México. Y esta charla se va a centrar en cómo las artistas empleamos el video para trascender fronteras temporales, geográficas y tejer un diálogo cultural de 4 siglos entre nuestros dos países. ¿Sí? Y Liu Fan nace y vive en Wuhan, en China. Es artista, crítica, curadora y académica. Desde el 2015 ha estado interesada en el arte y la cultura mexicana y en el intercambio histórico entre México y China. Fue parte muy importante, como les comentaba, de la gestación de este proyecto y lo introdujo al medio artístico chino. Ella estudió en la Universidad Tsinghua en Beijing, hizo estudios en la Academia de Bellas Artes de Hubei y obtuvo su grado de doctorado en la Universidad del Sureste de China. Es vicerrectora y profesora de la Escuela de Arte y Diseño de la Universidad Textil de Wuhan. Es miembro de la Asociación de Artistas Chinos, de la Asociación de Críticos Literarios Chinos. Es miembro y vicepresidenta de la Asociación Hafu de Investigación de la Cultura de la provincia de Hubei. He sido profesora visitante en la Freie Universität de Berlín, en la Universidad de Artes de Berlín y ha estado también en la Esmeralda en la Ciudad de México. En su obra, ella investiga las relaciones entre el espacio público y urbano y la globalización, y entre el ser y la identidad subjetiva. Ha producido varios proyectos internacionales en China y en Europa y ha escrito, traducido libros y artículos sobre arte. Participa incansablemente en seminarios, congresos y ofrece conferencias por todo el mundo, y sus obras son coleccionadas por numerosas galerías de arte e instituciones privadas de su país. Bueno, ella es Liu Fan. Welcome, my dear. Va a dar su conferencia en inglés, espero que lo entiendan, y si no, de todas formas en YouTube vamos a hacer que haya los subtítulos al español. Entonces le voy a dar la palabra a Liu Fan. Please, you can start. Y yo me voy a desaparecer de aquí un momento.
This is why. Do you hear the sound? It's so noisy.
It's noisy. I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay. Only is it my computer?
Could be your computer, yeah.
It never happened.
Yeah, well, this technology always is crazy.
So I start my talk now. Okay. Dear friends, artists and scholars, even I can't see how many are there, but I think it's thank you for Elizabeth giving me such a great opportunity to say something about the festival and about our works we have done in the past 10 years. And today I would like to give a talk. The title is "Why Are We Here Together?" I think it's from today. We gather to reflect on a story interwove with female experiences, cultural interaction, and visual creation. And I would like to begin this talk with a simple question, just like the title you have seen, why we here together. In fact, everything traced back to 2008 when I traveled to UK as an artist in residence for an international exchange project. At that time, I met my host, a Welsh artist. After viewing my work, he sensed a strong presence of female consciousness in it. And he told me, you should meet an exceptional women artist from Mexico. That artist turned out to be Elizabeth Rose. So we later became the curator of this very festival. Through his introduction, Elizabeth and I began to correspond. We didn't meet in person that year, but we exchanged emails, artworks, and language and images. From that moment on, our dialogue never ceased. Despite the ocean between us, our communication seems to transit national boundaries and cultural barriers because we don't create it from the perspective of being a woman, and we both use art as our language. Whenever she was in Mexico and I was in China, we were each exploring things of the body, emotion, memory, and identity within our own cultural frameworks. We both cared deeply about how women are seen and heard through visual expression, and we were each trying to construct it a personal visual language and model of articulation. In 2014, we finally met face to face in Germany. Elizabeth stayed in my home in Berlin and bought me a very special gift, a small black lacquered box that was made by wood inside with delicate patterns painted on its lid. At that time, I didn't realize how much about it. I just felt it looks very Chinese, very familiar. I have no idea then that box was actually crafted in Mexico using traditional techniques. Looking back now, I realize that symbolized our first culture encountered as two women artists. An object from Mexico evoked memories of the East in my hands. It became a link cultural response between us and opened up a deeper emotional connection to Mexican culture. It was through these kind of personal experiences that we later intonated and developed the idea of China Woman Video Artist Festival. Through repeated exhibition collaboration, curatorial exchanges, and joint cultural projects, we use the perspective of womanhood as a starting point to build an art platform that transcends languages, history, and geography. And this brings us to the central question of today's lecture. Why do we begin from female perspective? And why has video art become such an important media for us transnational dialogue? And in such a non-mainstream, cross-cultural conversation, what can we see, feel, and create? We often say that singing is not merely a visual act, it is also a social act. It reflects structures of cognition, cultural stance, and emotional experiences. For women artists, especially those coming from different cultural backgrounds, their models of seeing often exist outside mainstream narratives, carrying a unique reflectivity and emotional intensity. So, through this conversation, we aim to respond a deeper question. How can we, through art and through the eyes of East, see each other anew and doing so re-understanding of ourselves? So I shared some personal experiences to answer the first question, why we here together. And now I would like to take us further back in time, about 400 years ago, to re-examine the cultural trend that has long connected China and Mexico across the sea. This story begins thoroughly in the year 1572, a year that left a deep impression on me. I still remember the moment I was working with Elizabeth in a coastal city in the southern Mexico. What's the name of the city, Elizabeth? I never remember the name. We were strolling along a path when we suddenly saw an inscription and the thought, 1522, China. It struck me like a single and temporary evoke from the past. At that time, I have no idea what the connection there might be between the year 1522 and China. It simply left like a trace of Chinese memory embedded in the foreign land. It was only years later I began to study the Manila galleon trade that I realized 1702 marked a turning point, the first large-scale arrival of Chinese goods in New Spain through the Philippines. During Ming and Qing dynasty, China's prospective economy and craftsmanship led to outpouring of goods such as porcelain, silk, and lacquerware. These goods left from the southern Chinese ports arrived in Manila and were then shipped by Spanish colonial fleets across the sea to Acapulco on Mexico's west coast, which is so very close to the first small port we had been to. And this maritime road, which lasted nearly 250 years, uh, from the late of 16th century and the middle of 19th century, became one of the earliest, longest lasting, and widest reaching global trade routes in history. Through this exchange, Chinese material culture seeped into the daily life of New Spain in very distinguished way. Blue and white porcelain became a status symbol among the Mexican elite. I have some photos, Elizabeth, in my PDF.
Yes.
That's you will see the connections between Chinese blue and white porcelain and Mexican talavera.
Wait a minute. It's a little slow. Well, this is the map.
And Chinese textile adorns cultures, altars, and the homes. Lacquerware emerged as the treasures objects for gift giving and collections. And more importantly, these Chinese objects were not simply treated as imports, they were reinterpreted, recontextualized, and gradually integrated into the local culture. I remember the first time I entered a Mexican handcraft market, it felt strangely familiar. I saw Talavera ceramics decorated with patterns like feathered borders, cloud crows, and cranes, motifs that struck me as both familiar and foreign. Later, research confirmed that these were indeed localist evokers of Chinese blue and white porcelain motifs. Talavera ceramics, promoted by Spanish colonists in Mexico, embody a layered cultural reflection that I called a gaze back to the East from European colonial perspective. And this reflection, however, is twofold. First, it involved the Spanish admired and imitation of Chinese porcelain. As early as the late 16th century, King Philip II of Spain attempted to replicate Chinese porcelain in the town of Talavera de la Reina. Lacking the technique for high temperature porcelain fire, they developed thin glazed earthenware, painted blue motif on a white surface to mimic the visual aesthetic of Chinese porcelain. And this tradition was carried to Mexico. Well, it evolved into the unique, regionally special style of Talavera. Second, it involved the reinterpretation and re-innovation by Mexican artisan and indigenous aesthetics. They embedded local imaginary, animals, plants, into their visions of Chinese decoration. In a 250 years old ceramic workshop in Puebla, I saw them still producing blue and white pottery with bird motif. And these birds are both visually evoked of Chinese porcelain and symbols from indigenous traditions. So this made me realize blue and white porcelain is not a static cultural sign, but rather than a cross-cultural vessel, a visual language capable of carrying transformation and expanding meaning. From the fixed images of porcelain to the moving images we created in video today, there is a continuity. Culture is never static. It is always being reconstructed through immigration and reinterpreted through representation. And this very process of transformation is where the vitality of cross-cultural art lives. Having exploring the history behind Talavera, we must ask, was this cultural exchange merely a byproduct of empire and commerce? Was it only about a movement of porcelain, silk, and lacquerware? I believe not. Beneath this ground narrative of global trade lies a more delicate, imitate dimensions, and it is precisely where the female perspective always important role in cross-cultural transitions. During my fieldwork in Mexico, I noticed that many images with Eastern aesthetic qualities didn't appear in ground church or public building, but rather than in kitchens, bedrooms, and everyday life, used for storing water or flowers. These domestic space, often shaped by women and intimately linked to bodily perception and emotional memory. We could say that the localization of Chinese porcelain in Mexico was not merely a micro-oceanic globalization, but also a sculptic emotional rooting of culture in everyday life. This leads me to reflect as we create video art and organize festivals today. Are we too inheriting and extending this cross-cultural female coding? In curating the Chinese Woman Video Artist Festival with Elizabeth, I realized we were unconsciously continuing a historical dialogue from the porcelain bowls held by women in the 17th century to the cameras in women's hands in the 21st century. We are composing an unofficially visual history of cross-cultural exchange, shaped by bodily memory and emotional trajectories. From single boards and templates to street markets and wedding parades, these things represented China in eyes of others. So I overheard the Mexicans say chinos. That does not mean someone from China. It can refer broadly anything oriental. So this blurred orient is both a misreading and a space for creativity. It transformed the image of China from one-way export into a constantly reconstructed visual resources. This resource entered Mexican painting, murals, and installation. For instance, Frida Kahlo referenced Chinese textile in her self-portrait. This representation from a kind of a cultural mirror in which the East exists as a ghostly presence in Latin American art. And finally, I return to our familiar media, the screen. Today, we present our works through digital screens, but if we consider the screen as a culture diverse, it bears remarkable resemblance to porcelain. Both are surfaces. Porcelain surfaces carry images and techniques, and the video surfaces reflect experiences and thoughts. neither is the product of single culture. They are both multi-coded. From underglaze blue imaginary to modern video editing, from repeated patterns in crafts to montage in moving images, we are exactly doing the same thing, letting stories speak again. Through new media, we awaken memories embodied in material culture and give them a new expressive potential. And that is what I mean by the Chinese imprint from porcelain to screen. We are both searching and creating. The cultural corridor between China and Mexico that spanned over 400 years has never been static. It is extended through each action of creation and each reinterpretation by women artists today. And now I would like to move to the next part of my lecture today, female images and cross-cultural expression. And in this section, I want to draw from my own artistic practice, especially the video works I presented at the first China Women Video Artist Festival to explore how video art has become a vital media for women to articulate inner experiences, social positions, and cross-cultural reflections. One of my work titled Lamp was born gradually out of my daily life and spiritual observation. At that time, I was living at the foot of Qixia Mountain in Nanjing. Every evening, I would walk up to the hill and pass by Qixia Temple. I noticed that many people would come to the temple to make wishes, and they lit candles before the Buddha, hoping to communicate their desires, confusion, and longing through the fragile flicker of the flame. At that time, a strong reflection arose in me. Buddhism speaks of emptiness, of non-self, of illusion, of ultimate quietude. And yet, in reality, people are persistently attached to having, to the tangible, to possession, and to feel fulfillment of desire. So I began collecting these burned down candles and remolded them into Buddha figures and then relit them. This video work documents with slow melt of these Buddha-shaped wax sculptures. It is both ironic and meditation, an act symbolizing the transition from form to emptiness. For me, this is a spiritual reflection from a female perspective, a philosophical expression shaped by embodied experiences and daily contemplation. I believe that women's artistic expressions often do not directly confront grand narratives, but rather respond through subtitles, soft and mental theoretical gestures. So video art becomes such an important media for women because of its natural images. Here are not conclusions, they are truth, reflection, records of experience, projections of consciousness. We know well that throughout history, women have been largely positioned as the object of gaze. But in video art, we finally became the subject. We look back, we narrative, and we construct ourselves. Videos became a tool for self-documentation, a path toward reclaiming embodied memory. In this possession, the body itself becomes a media, not a decorative form, but a carrier of emotion, identity, and life experiences. In addition to lamp, I would also to share a series of photos of video works inspired by Chinese opera, facial masks, 脸谱. As many of you know, 脸谱 system in traditional Chinese opera is rich with symbolism, encoding personality, social status, and moral judgment. But here, there's a question. These symbolic masks are largely shaped by male narratives. Even the female roles in Chinese opera are often performed by men, defined through a male lens. This led me to ask, in such a system of presentation, how are female identity constructed? Can women reclaim their own symbolic system? In my work, I invited a young female model to paint traditional masks on their palm and then raise their hand to cover her face. That gesture of covering is actually a form for resistance, a visual inquiry. Who defines female representation? Can we, through our own bodies, re-question and reinterpret these constructed cultural symbols? This work later developed into a cross-cultural workshop that was presented during the first video festival. We invited local participants to learn about Chinese opera masks and then choose one of that resonated with them and painted on each other's faces. And this act became more than just cultural education. It was a redistribution of symbolic power. I still remember the final sense. Each participant improvised a small performance during their own bodies and emotions to revive these ancient symbols from the East. In this Mexican context, the opera mask was no longer just a Chinese heritage symbol. It became a language open to re-innovation and re-embodiment. To me, this was deeply meaningful. It reminded me that traditional culture is not static or closed. It can grow new branches on foreign soil, and female artists are often the one with the sensitivity and encouraged to let it pass through their own bodies and generated a new structure of meaning through video art. Another work I exhibited at the festival was an animation video that reflects my deeper concerns about gender roles within religious frameworks. During the creation process, I became increasingly aware that the many religion systems, women are often occupied subordinated positions. They are the devotees, sacrificers, rarely lawgivers. Once again, video art shows its unique potential. It immerses painting, sound, text, time, and bodily sensation, allowing female artists to build a cultural body of their own and construct new narratives and proportions within the fragmented yet liquid language of moving images. Now I would like to go one step further to speak about the intersection of cultural identity, generated experiences, and artistic intervention. Over the past 10 years of organizing this festival, we have not simply been screening works. We have, in fact, been engaged in an ongoing discussion of identity. Each female artist video is not just a personal expression, it is also a response to the structural issues of embedded in their social environment, articulated through their body, their images, and the space he lives. And this is preciously why we need this kind of festival. It is not a one-way display window. It is a multi-directional space of witnessing. And in this space, women from the East are not voiceless others. They are narrators, producers of images, editors of cultural memory. And the Mexican audience members and artists are not the passive receivers. Either they are active responders, co-creators, viewers, and seen and are seen. We often ask about mutual learning between civilizations. But how do civilizations truly see each other? How can art build trust across differences? How can we turn differences not into division, but into an opportunity for dialogue? I believe this is the enduring value of our 10 years role with the festival. We've always sought a way of looking that not defining by power, but grounded in lived experiences. Not a gaze organized by center, but one that can places sensation and empathy at this core. To understanding each other through viewing. So to discovering ourselves in the process of watching one another. That is what I want to share today, and thank you so much for Elizabeth for your hard work for this festival, and for the hard work for the 10 years.
Thank you. Thank you, because I know that was an effort to just speak not in Chinese, but I really, really grateful for your work and for your point of view. It's really enriching. So, 谢谢你。